by a colleague from Ghana. He says, you know, I've always thought of Kenya as nice hotels. I think of Maasai, I think of lions, I think of nice roads. And I said, even we thought of ourselves like that. And that changed in 2007, 2008. I'd like to think that that change had been happening for quite some time. Still, what does Kenya have going for it? And I'll talk about some of the details of the Constitution a bit later. Kenya's primary asset is its people. We have a coalition government which allowed us to have, as it were, a ceasefire that created the environment to allow us to pass a constitution recently. Kenya's geopolitical importance in the region has meant that we had rapid international external assistance when problems broke out in Kenya. I also think we have going for us the fact that Kenya has got no major extractive industry, the fact that we have no oil, I think is a positive thing. The last I read about 3 weeks ago, the prospecting for oil in northern Kenya by the Chinese had failed. And I celebrated this because it means that we remain dependent on taxes and on Kenya to make things work. Fourthly, what we have going for us is the prospects offered by the East African Federation. Fifth, the economic vibrancy of Kenya, despite our politics. And finally, we have a new constitution that creates a framework in which Kenyans can be able to reach their aspirations. For me, the most powerful message sent to me about ourselves as Kenyans in August when we voted during the referendum was the fact that Kenyans turned out in huge numbers to vote for the new constitution. They registered in great numbers and they voted in great numbers for the new constitution. This is despite what had happened in 2007 and 2008, which shows a continuing confidence in democratic processes and institutions in Kenya. Despite the difficulties, we got carried away a little bit once we passed a constitution. We were very excited. And the presence of the Sudanese president at the promulgation ceremony on the 27th of August was a good reality check for all of us with regard to passing a constitution and imbuing the country with a spirit of constitutionalism. So the commitment of Kenyans to reforms has never been in doubt. There have been betrayals along the way. Some facts about the new constitution, which I think are good. First is that we will have an election in August of 2012. Second, members of parliament will not necessarily be ministers. So we will have ministers that can be picked from the private sector, which is a major innovation and development for Kenya. Third, and perhaps I think the most critical and challenging for us, but I think important, is that there will be 47 county governments controlling 100 billion shillings, which is just over $1 billion, by mid-2013. Fourth, there will be at least 60 female MPs and senators. I think that's a very positive development. Fifth, we have a 50+1% rule in terms of the presidential election. You must win 50+1% of the vote, which perhaps will begin de-tribalizing our politics in a situation that has been extremely polarized along ethnic lines over the last 5 or 6 years. And I'll go into what I have learned. I went back to Kenya in August of 2008. From October of 2008 until November of 2009, I spent time traveling around the country at the grassroots and getting a feel for what had happened to the country, especially during the time that I was away. And 6 important points, some of which I believe are addressed by the new constitution. First, and perhaps most disturbing, but it shouldn't have been disturbing because it shouldn't have surprised me that much, is the extent to which people have been polarized and divided along ethnic lines in Kenya, the strength of tribalism in our society. Secondly, was the extent to which the state had been delegitimized by the violence of 2007-2008. The fact that during the post-election violence, we had entire sections of the country where the state did not have effective control, where young people, the youth in particular, were running entire sections of the country. It delegitimized the Kenyan state in a very profound way. And we're going to begin to see, as we implement the new constitution now, a counter-reform bulwark that is going to coalesce around this. Third, which is very apparent to me, what is extraordinary youth bulge we have in Kenya. 75% of our population is below the age of 34. And there's a belligerency amongst the youth. The post-election violence, from what I saw, as I said, I spent a year traveling and living with people in their homes. The post-election violence was an extremely empowering event for Kenyan youth. Empowering in both positive and negative sense. I met young people who said, listen, we can set up a roadblock and block trade to Uganda. 100 of us can do it. We can set up a roadblock and shake down the middle class from what they have that we don't. This remains a challenge. If we look at the most recent census, the Kenyan population is growing at around 1 million people a year. What should be the guarantee of Kenya's economic prosperity in the future is a challenge at the current time. So as I said, the youth are dangerously empowered in some places, and they will shape the future. My other finding, and this is contested, was that it is in Kenya's most cosmopolitan rural areas and urban areas that the real nation of Kenya is being forged. Coast Province, the Rift Valley, Nairobi, and the urban areas, where the tribes and the ethnic groups are mixed, where the challenges are most urgent, where negotiations and accommodations have to be made between groups. That is where the new Kenya is being forged. That said, the new constitution means that identities are shifting. The new constitution is shifting Kenyan identities because certain provinces have ceased to exist, and we'll see how that plays out. Sixth, and for me the most important issue, I went back into Kenya thinking that health, education, water were the key challenges. In truth, the primary livelihood gap facing Kenyans is security. Security of life and property is the primary challenge that the ordinary poor Kenyan is facing on a day-to-day basis. This manifests itself in many ways. We've seen the beginning and creation of youth gangs in particular, filling this gap of security, providing security where the state has retreated. Still, I'll close by summarizing what I think is where Kenya is right now. I think Kenya is living a moment of hope that can only be captured by its leadership, especially leadership from below, because the youth and the grassroots have already been empowered, sometimes in antisocial ways, but are ready to be involved in the changes that are ongoing as a result of the constitution being changed. The two most important constitutional changes that are going to play out, regardless of what's written in the paper of the constitution, the counties, the devolution into 47 counties, number one, and the empowerment of the legislature. We're going to see a very robust legislature in Kenya over the coming few years.